Yes, check 1 2 1 2 with Black Minds Radio. Professor Griffin, Sister Zaza, we're gonna find out his brother, Phil Valentine, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring him right on. Dr. Phil Valentine, is this you, sir?
Yes, it is, brother.
Greetings. How are you, Hotep?
Hotep, Mimi Seshamek.
Hotep.
Hotep, beloved. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Very happy and excited to have you on the show tonight. Thank you for being here.
Most welcome. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, your phone is kind of breaking up. I'm not sure whether or not it's blog talk or if it's the area you in, but anyway, we're going to push forward.
I hear you. How you hear me like this? Is this good?
Okay, yeah, now you're clear. You're good. You're good.
Okay.
You're good. So we've been really anticipating this. We put it out on the on Facebook, we put it out on the internet, and we sent it out. Via the internet and via Texas, and people were responding. And as I told you earlier, we had some of the naysayers and some people with some lip service. So we'll see how it turns out. But it's a beautiful thing. A lot of times, I always tell people in order to enter into the battlefield, you have to have your sword and your shield sharp, clean, and ready. You can't do it while you're on the battlefield. All right. So I think the people are ready to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to be quiet, and we're going to dive right into this. So I think the first thing that I think the people want to know, keeping our fingers on the pulse of the people, I think the people want to know, who are you, number one, and only you can answer that. And then what is your ultimate goal as far as your work is concerned?
Well, who am I? I teach at our university, What Are We? Because that's pretty much more important, because the who simply personalizes us and it makes us estranged from one another. But if we knew what we were, essentially, at the core of our beings, then there would be less strife and less people actually being in contestance with one another. But who am I? Well, for this particular event and for this particular forum, I'm called Dr. Philip Valentine. I am a doctor of naturopathic medicine, a doctor of metaphysics, a doctor of hygienic science, and I am someone who is simply concerned, has been for a very long time, about getting certain information that I think is pertinent to the people and their upliftment. A lot of people may not be on board with my specific system and how I go about doing these things. I tend to rub people the wrong way, people who have entrenched beliefs, people who essentially are kind of caught up in a cult of personality and do not like to hear their icons being humanized. They would rather keep them at a godlike level so that they could have something to attain to. I understand that, but that may be the necessity for some. But others would like to know other things that are going on around people, around places, and around things. So what do I do? Well, for the longest period of time, I have been shaking the tree. I have been rocking the boat. Started about 1984, 85, when I was the first black man that I know who came out community, not only in the New York community, but all through the United States. It's underground community, the grassroots community, and stated that the whole HIV/AIDS phenomenon was a hoax. Now, I fought back the flack from brothers and sisters. In fact, I lost very close friends. One of them, a very notable radio personality whom I won't name. We were on AM shows that essentially used to broadcast out of Harlem, speaking to brothers and sisters who were just coming off the boat, who had Harlem and that radio station as a way to interface with the New York Society, with the American Society. And when I came on and started speaking about the fact that based upon what I knew, the metaphysics of the human body, the intelligence of the cell, everything they were saying did not match and did not coincide with divine orders and divine laws that essentially governed the human existence. Now, it took a while because even some of my closest students didn't believe me. And after about 5 or 6 years, those who were my worst and greatest detractors finally came on board after all the information came out. And guess what? After white folks said, yeah, you might have been right. So what I do now is just, it really hurt me that a lot of the brothers and sisters that I lost as friends did not believe me and thought that I was somehow trying to gain some kind of popularity. I was dealing with a fringe kind of mentality so I could get attention to myself. So it was very hard for me to have to deal with loss of friends and coming to say the truth. So that I said, well, you know what? If I had to lose those people who call themselves my friends, then they weren't my friends. So what happened was I put together something that essentially became kind of a legend in New York that spread actually gave birth to what we call the conscious community today, where Bobby Hemmett, Dr. Delbert Bland, myself, something called the Gathering of the Masters. It was at the Gathering of the Masters that I began. That first Gathering of the Master was the outing and bringing together the community to show them that HIV/AIDS was a hoax. Well, from that, it dovetailed into many different things around metaphysics, the exposure of Christianity for what it is, religion and all that, and what it is that we do as far as our health is concerned, what we've done as African peoples. I sat at the feet of the great ones, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Dr. Van Sertela, Dr. Amos Wilson. Those were my heroes. Those were my mentors. But I found that they were more into the nationalistic mentality. And I was one who said that, okay, we knew we built pyramids and that we did the underpinnings. We built civilization. We were the ones who created it. Well, we are always trying to discover and actually give symmetry to what they did, which is an effect. What I was interested in, what was the causal principles that brought around the ideas that they built pyramids around? What was the mindset? What was the spirituality? So I wanted to deal with the metaphysics of why we became so great. So since Dr. Dan, our blessed elder, was a 96-degree Mason, he wasn't going to tell too much to me. So I kissed him on the forehead and blessed him and said, okay, Baba, well, I'm going to have to go ahead and take this to the next stage. So between Bobby and my beloved big brother, Dr. Delbert Blair, we began dealing with metaphysics, dealing with the way the mind works. And that's how my university is based. It's based on uplifting the mind and giving the mind the ability to think 3 and 4 levels deep, to get into the abstractness that our ancestors, the frame of mind, the first eye that they were actually looking through, cleaning off the lens of the black first eye so that we could see into the glass darkly the way our ancestors did. So that's who I was for a while. What I am, that's a whole other story.
Wow. Now, brother, let me ask you this because I know somebody is listening and they're thinking, well, if AIDS was or is a hoax, are they making it out to be something like it? Is there really something happening that they call it AIDS, or has the whole story been a hoax? Because, people are thinking, well, people have died, millions of people have died in Africa. Is that true, or are we looking at something else that they're just calling AIDS?
Well, AIDS was called GRID, gay-related immunodeficiency, a while. And the story around AIDS began in New York around 1970, 72, 74. What had happened was the FDA and these other so-called medical or scientific oversight communities were essentially dealing with something called vinyl nitrate and butyl nitrate. These these materials were actually cancer-causing. Now, what they did was the CDC began regulating amyl nitrate, but it didn't regulate butyl nitrate. And it was at that point, and I'm not going to get too specific because, it's a long story how this thing developed. And what happened was this scientist who was working at that time for a pharmaceutical company, himself being gay, since butyl nitrate wasn't being regulated by the CDC and the rest of them, governmental oversight, he took butyl nitrate and began creating a way of dealing with getting high. In other words, there would be these ampules. You'd pop the ampule. That's where they got the name poppers from. And the amyl nitrate would be inhaled. And what it did, it would give you the rush. But what would happen then is it would help your anus to open up. It would relax the anus. So the homosexual communities went wild over this. And through in the California community and in the New York community, that's where this guy was shipping it from. He's shipping it from out of California. Had a serious business. He's making millions during this time. Now, for 7 years, this was going on, and towards the end of the 7th year, a lot of the doctors in these clinics began reporting gay men coming into them with an immunodeficiency situation, a syndrome, and they didn't know where it was coming from. But they did know that it was undermining the defensive system of these people because once you inhaled it, it began to destroy your white blood cells and so forth because it caused you, this kind of inhaling of this material would cause your body to go on a very rapid and very high level defense, and you could exhaust yourself constantly doing that. Now, I know people are not going to really believe what's going on, but this is information that most people don't have. So I'm saying this to bring people up to speed as quickly as possible because it is a little bit more involved. Well, to make a long story short, after it had begun to permeate the homosexual community and gay-related immunodeficiency syndromes began happening, that's when they came out with this report about this new disease that people had no kind of, it was almost opportunistic, that they took advantage of this particular condition and circumstance because, now here's the other part of the story. During 1974, Ronald Reagan had deregulated the cancer industry. The cancer industry, which was taking in $40 billion from our taxes to give us nothing back. Reagan, because his wife got cancer, said, listen, we're deregulating this cancer industry. This is the word, industry. And everybody who's got a solution can come out with something. So everybody bum rushed to try to get the money. But then the cancer industry said, ooh, we're going to lose a whole lot of money around this. What can we do in order to maintain our fingers and our hands in the cookie jar? They came up with this AIDS syndrome situation. And you will see, if you know the history, that the entire AIDS industry is stocked with everything and everyone that was once in the cancer industry.
Okay. Wow. That's deep. You mentioned before that you started studying metaphysics and how the mind works. I want to ask you a really simple and basic question about the condition, the mind state of our people, black people in America. Dr. Joy DeGruy coined the term post-traumatic slave syndrome and basically said that the majority of our people here are suffering from mental, spiritual, and even physical ailments that stem back to slavery. Would you agree with that assessment? And if so, what do you think our people that are still in that lowest mindset, what can we do to raise them up?
Well, it's interesting because I would qualify the post-traumatic slave syndrome by saying it's continuing traumatic slave syndrome. There's nothing post about it because we're still slaves. You could be a post-slave, and then have some bad dreams, and then come out of it, and someone helps you, and you get back on your feet, and there's a support mechanism around you. It wants to uplift you. It wants to do this is a whole other kind of slavery. It went from the physical to the psycho-spiritual, and to the psychophysical. So they had to enslave you and